Hi everybody, happy Thursday. I really should remind myself what the date is before I get on lives because I'm always like, what day is it? I don't know. I guess it doesn't matter. If you watch the recording, that would be awesome. And I would welcome you to watch the recording if you can't be on live. So don't feel like you missed out. Today I wanted to talk about how perfection was literally killing me and how I moved from that, or why I moved from that to Flawsome, which I don't know if that's a new coin term or someone else has said it maybe. I'm going to move this here so I can see any comments or anybody coming on. So really it's a little bit of a story. I'm going to tell you that first off, and I will try to skip through all of the stuff that I think is funny that's really not necessary, but sometimes I'm a storyteller. I like to, I like to tell a story. I like to entertain. So first off, I want to say that perfection is a bad habit. And you can't see my hands. My hands were out like this. Bad habit. It is a bad habit that a lot of us have. We really strive for perfection so that we can get a pat on the back, or so that nobody can sort of knock us down or judge us harshly, because what we're really afraid of is being judged in some way that's going to make us feel guilty or shameful. So, sorry, I forgot to turn on my messages there. I just closed my laptop. So basically that's what I had, and briefly where that came from was growing up, and I had a very, I was the baby of the family, so there's a little bit of competition when you're a younger sibling and you always want to do better than the older ones, or maybe you don't want to. I did, so I'm not going to put words into your mouth. But I did, and I am significantly younger than my brothers, and so it was always like that. I would come about 9-10 years later, and they're like, oh, you're so-and-so's. Not so-and-so. I know my brother's names, but I don't have to tell them here. You're blank's sister, right? Oh, yes, I am. And then it was just sort of like proving, like, I'm better than they are. You will like me better. And I began to, sorry, my cat's gonna be vocal. Flawsome, right? So I began to work really hard to try to get great grades. And what I learned was that when you got really great grades, you got things like gold stars, and you got, you got called up at assemblies, and, oh wow, you're so smart. Like, you've been called up at every assembly, right? That's how it starts in elementary school. There's really not much of a jealousy thing, like first, second grade, like everybody's just happy for you. And you are totally wanting to impress your second mommy, whoever your teacher is at that point. It gets a little bit later on, and then it's competitive, and you start comparing yourself to other people. And I was getting pretty good at it. I was getting pretty good at making grades and, doing well on all the spelling tests. Where I hit my first snag was when I was in 7th grade and on the gymnastic team. And I had a coach tell me at the end of the year that I would have to lose 15 pounds over the summer in order to stay on the competitive team. Now, I really loved gymnastics, but I was really competitive, so I wanted to be on the competitive team. I wasn't all that good, and in retrospect, I really probably didn't belong there. But the thing for me was that I was being told that I wasn't getting a pat on the back for who I was. Now I was being judged on my body, and I hit puberty really early. Kids hit puberty and they just think their body's weird. They're trying to figure out why they're growing. I grew so fast I had stretch marks in 7th grade, and so I'm sure that's why I was bigger than some of the other people on my team, and I felt weird about it. And then someone told me that was wrong, and I took a serious hit to my ego. Unfortunately, that summer I got my introduction to like all the fad diets. I did not lose 15 pounds. I was not on the competitive team the next year. And I drew into myself. And actually, I wasn't active in sports until I was 30. That's when I decided later on to pick up running. And that was real difficult. And what it did to me was show me that I had to work harder. That maybe I had to avoid being judged in the physical department, and I had to like crank it up a notch and work harder and be more perfect, right? So I still kept up with the grades, and I still kept up achieving everything that I could achieve. You know, if I could be an officer of a club, I was an officer of a club, and I was going to all the meetings, and I was going to get as many awards as I could. And I was going to try to impress as many people as I could, and that was sort of where the perfectionism, I perfected the perfectionism, and it really was a bad habit. So fast forward a few years, I was pretty good at my bad habit, perfectionism, and this light is in the way. And I feel like, hey, Melissa, if you're still on, thanks for joining. So fast forward a few years, and I married my high school sweetheart, and he went into the Air Force. And I had taken on this attitude of, I don't really care what you think about how I look. I'm going to be a rebel. And here is how rebels are really perfectionists. Rebels are perfectionists because they are not allowing you to judge them by the mold that everyone judges, right? So I'm going to be outrageous so that you can't even judge me. Like when I was growing up, Brooke Shields and Jordache jeans were the thing. Well, I wouldn't even wear those. You weren't going to judge me in those. So I was wearing like highlight color spandex and shorts and the weirdest things you could ever see a kid wearing to school because you weren't going to judge me on that. And that was part of perfectionism, and I sort of carried that into the Air Force. Not me in the Air Force, but my husband was in the Air Force. And I got really scared because I'm not much into politics. My education is more in science and math. It's not into history or geography, and like that's what all these Air Force people were talking about, and I couldn't compete with that. Also, you know, like we were in the younger time of our lives and everyone was healthy and beautiful, and I couldn't compete with that either. And I really pulled into myself again and just said, you know, like, well, I'm going to pretend I don't care. And the things I can control, I'm going to control them so obsessively that you are going to pat me on the back. So a popular story from that time is that I had the most impressive pantry you have ever seen. I mean, we're talking it's arranged by when you would eat it, time of the day. My spices are color-coded, alphabetized, and arranged by size. People would commonly come into my pantry and like switch things around because they thought that was funny. And then I would go switch it back as soon as possible because I could control that. I could be perfect in that. I would do that with my house. I would clean my house obsessively, even with 2 young kids, because I did not want anyone to come in and judge me. I was afraid they would judge me. Hey, Vanessa. Hey, Melissa. So I'm just talking about sort of my streak with my bad habit of perfectionism, and how it rolled into my marriage when my husband joined the Air Force and I became an Air Force spouse. And, you know, it's a funny thing when you feel like you can't feel, you will do things to cover that up. And first I tried to be perfect, but then when I beat myself up so much that that I couldn't hang with the crowd on their knowledge of history or geography or politics or the Air Force, and we would go to these social things. I've seen who that is. Oh, hey, Alex. When we would go to these social things, which we do in the Air Force all the time, I would rebel and act out, but I got to where I wanted to go because I wanted to be social, I wanted to be with other people, but I couldn't stand myself afterwards. I always was afraid I was going to stick my foot in my mouth and say something dumb, So people would think I was dumb, and I wanted to be perfect, right? Didn't want you to judge me. So one of the very common things that you have in any social situation, but I guess in my husband's line of work, when you are off the clock, you are relaxing, and they have very stressful job, and so they have a bar in their office, and so there was always alcohol available, and for me, free alcohol was awesome, because I was also frugal. I didn't want to spend anything. And I got to where we would go to the social events, and I would make my own drink and make it as strong as possible so that one, I could loosen up and not worry so much about what I was gonna say, but two, over the years, I got to where I would drink so much and so quickly that I would actually black out and not remember part of the night. And so that freed me from feeling vulnerable and kicking myself later for what I had said or not said, or how I looked or not looked, and I just didn't remember. I would actually then extended it the other way, and we would go to events and I would have a drink at home so that by the time we got there, I was already feeling relaxed, and I didn't want to feel anything. And so that was really scary. And what I came to start doing was drinking so much that I couldn't remember certain things. And I know I put my family in unsafe situations. I know when we lived in Germany, I actually drove home with kids sometimes, and I shouldn't have. And the saddest thing about it is that I totally didn't know how bad I was making things. It totally didn't even occur to me. I wouldn't have said I had a drinking problem at all. And that's sad. And it really wasn't until a couple years ago. I was very fortunate. As most of you guys know, if you follow me on my post, I am a coach and lifestyle coach, which might seem at odds with this, but I was asked if I would like to be a coach. Now, I've always, when I started running in my 30s, when I finally got over, like, okay, whatever, my body's not perfect and I'm gonna run, and I'm gonna run long distances, so you don't judge me there. You know, I ran a marathon, don't judge me. So I got really good at coaching people, like in physical sports and motivation. Hey, Trisha. And so coaching does come naturally to me, but when I got asked to be a coach and had the opportunity to start it as my business, I still wasn't in the right place. Like, yeah, I wanted to make myself better. And thankfully someone, suggested that I read a book called Gifts of Imperfection, and in there I read about this thing called numbing, which is what you do when you don't want to feel your feelings. And especially when you're a perfectionist and you have that bad habit of trying to make everything tip-top shape so nobody knows who you really are inside, and how flawsome you are, right? That you begin to use methods to dim your feelings, to dim how you take things in. For me, it was actually a variety of everything. So I love to gamble. I would go, yes, I love that book, Gifts of Imperfection. And Melissa, do you know that the first time I read that, I cursed. I cursed my friend who suggested it to me, like literally. And I was like, why would you recommend this book? This book it's so painful. Yeah, Alex, totally read it. Read this book. Take it in doses, because it speaks to you. It speaks to you. So I'm reading this book and I'm realizing, oh, look at me. I'm doing this thing called numbing. Like when I drink and I don't want to feel things, I'm numbing. When I go to the casino and I just want to stare at a slot machine for 2 hours, I'm numbing. When I binge watch television, when I should be taking care of other things, and I'm not just saying like a couple hours of binge watch, just for enjoyment, because I did all my work and I have free time. No, I'm talking about like hours. Like when you do that, you are numbing, you are covering something else up. And I realized that, yeah, it did. It gave me the smackdown. The book gave me the smackdown. And I realized that I was doing so much. And in the book, I believe what she says is something like this. I can't quote her directly, but when you dim the dark, you dim the light. So it's not only that you cannot feel the bad things, but you also can't feel the joy and the love and the good things. You're shutting that out. And that's what I was doing in my family. If I wasn't going to hurt us physically, I was going to damage us emotionally, where we couldn't come back from that. So it really gave me a kick in the pants. It gave me the smackdown, Melissa, as you say. And I started realizing that that I don't need to be concerned about what other people think of me. What I need to be concerned about is having a life and experiences that no one else has and not sharing it. Because I really feel like your experiences are given to you for a reason. They're laid upon you, they're layered upon you for a reason, and in order that at one point they all coalesce together, and what you have to share then helps someone else get through it. And what you have to share allows someone else to come out of a painful time of their life. And that's really what I came to see. And it's been amazing. Like I didn't keep friendships. Okay, this is another sad thing about being an Air Force spouse for 19 years. I've kept very few friendships, and I've been introduced to very many amazing women. And that's really too bad. That's too bad for me, and that's why some of you will be like, Jody Fisher, why do you now want to be my friend? Well, my friend, I am telling you, like, I'm here to share my story so it doesn't happen to you. I'm here to share my story to encourage you to share yours and stop hiding, because that's what happened to me. That's what happened. It's still happening, and now I get to share it with people. I'm meeting fantastic people who are improving my life. Maybe they don't think they are, but they are, because they're amazing and they're loving. They love their families. They love others, like unconditionally. It's crazy. And so that's how I came from perfectionism was killing me, and I've come to Flawsome. Really, Flawsome is being yourself. There's this word. Let me give you a short example, just a brief glimpse here of what I mean by Flawsome. So I'm from Texas, and I'm gonna say that my family, a certain part of my family is lingually challenged. So I don't know what it is, but we just sort of get tongue-tied, and like words come out, and you know, and then you slap the Texas accent on top of that too, and all of a sudden, like, you'll get, like, my great-grandmother used to say, congratulations, or graduation. And my mom still, I love you, Mom. But there's still words that she pronounces in a way, it's like, I don't want to correct you, but I'm going to correct you on that. So there's a company name that when we lived in Utah, I swear, I can't say it. Even my kids and my husband know when we drive by one, which is not that frequent, thank goodness. But it's DAL-TILE. So like the beginning of Dallas and then tile. And for some reason, those two words together, So Dow-tile, for some reason, comes out in this crazy Texas accent rather than they can say it just fine. I cannot do it for the life of me, and half the time I can't even finish saying the two syllables together. But, you know, that is just part of being Flawsome, who you are and where you come from, and those crazy stories you have, those crazy sayings you have, the fact that maybe you, I don't know, like maybe you give everybody a fist pump. I don't know, that could be weird to some people, but it's great about you. So don't stop doing it. I truly tried to get rid of my Texas accent when I was 15. I worked on it. because I was so embarrassed by it. Hey, Julie, you know, there are a lot of things I hide. I know how to square dance. I actually went through class and graduated when I was 12, but I do. You know, I know all the words to Rapper's Delight. Some people know that too, but there are very few of us. I love opera and musicals, and I sing musicals in public. It's embarrassing to some people, but other people love it. So the whole point, and I will wrap up, is being yourself, even those parts of yourself that you're embarrassed about, or those parts of yourself that you feel like aren't proper or aren't accepted in this general area that you're living in or people you're around, you should proudly display those. So this is another thing. You should proudly display them, because the people who love you for being Flawsome, flaws and all, are the people who you belong to. Some people call it a tribe, or they're your family, but they're the people you belong to. It's when you hide the little things and you try to be perfect and you drive yourself nuts, and then you go drink alcohol because you're covering it up, and then you nearly kill yourself trying to drive home. That's ridiculous, first of all, and I can say that from the heart because I did it myself, and it's stupid. I don't call people stupid, but I can call myself stupid. So, you know, doing that and hiding things, that's you just trying to fit in to a place you don't belong. That's also in that book, but I'm saying it from the heart with my little words. So, you know, be who you are so you belong, and people love you for that. Then there's no stress, because you can always be yourself. When you try to hide it and you fit in, you're going to be miserable. Fitting in is miserable. You don't want to be there. So be Flawsome. Fight that bad habit of perfection, because it's just a bad habit. You don't have to be a perfectionist. You're not naturally a perfectionist. You train yourself to be a perfectionist. And just be yourself and share your experiences of who you are. That's it. Thank you guys so much for listening. Thank you guys for the comments. I'm going to go back through and respond to you guys. And if you happen to watch the recording and you want to leave comments, I will respond to those as well. So you guys have a great Thursday, and let's roll into the weekend.